everyone. I'm your host, comedian, magician, Danny Whitson. But it's all tricks aside, because tonight we're turning the paranormal into the normal. Join me as we explore the gray areas of reality. We're going to talk all things paranormal, UFOs, ghosts, cryptids, and aliens, and see how it's all connected. This podcast is brought to you by the Experiencer Support Association, and we are live. So if you're an experiencer yourself, or you're just plain nosy, be sure to send me your question and subscribe to the podcast. Now, get ready, because it's going to get deep. No, really, we're going to go way out there, because this is Beyond the Tinfoil Hat. What's happening, my paranormal junkies, and welcome to Beyond the Tinfoil Hat. I'm your host, comedy magician Danny Whitson, and boy, do we got a show for you guys tonight. First of all, let's say thank you for tuning in. Like I said, we got some really cool things happening in the UFO world. If you guys have not been over to the website, theexperiencersupport.org, our very own Ryan Stacy has some really cool articles out. Like right now, you can check out the Falcon Lake incident story of 1967, a really cool UFO encounter. Also, you can check out Stefan McCallick's, I believe I'm saying it right, Stefan McCallick's UFO encounter story. That's also on there. And then be sure to check out Ryan's latest investigation report about the Boeing 737 spotting mysterious lights over the skies of Canada. All those things you can go out and check out right now at the experiencersupport.org. Our very own Ryan Stacy's very own report. Be sure to check that out. But I'm real excited about tonight's guest. This person, we're talking ghosts. We're talking haunts. We're talking haints. Yes. This person I've had the honor to know for a while. I've actually got to go check out one of the places that she actually owns and operates. She is a co-owner of the very haunted Scott County Jail here in Tennessee. And she's the lead investigator of her very own show on YouTube, The Ghost Biker. So let's welcome our very own Miranda Young.
Hey.
How you doing, Miranda?
I'm doing fantastic. How about you, Danny?
I'm doing good. I'm so excited to see you again. It was a blast having you on my old podcast, The Abracadam. But I tell you what, as long as I didn't jack it up too much, go ahead and let the viewers know a little bit about you.
Absolutely. So of course, my name is Miranda. I'm better known as the Ghost Biker, and I travel around the country on my motorcycle to different haunted and historic locations, and I highlight them on my web series, Ghost Biker Explorations. I'm also co-owner of the historic Scott County Jail Museum. I created a company with my best friend and business partner, Dr. Christy Sumner from Soul Sisters Paranormal. The company's called History, Highways, and Haunts. And so together we co-own the historic Scott County Jail Museum and then historic Rugby After Dark tours and investigations.
You know, I was trying to remember the town that was in the other day when I was talking about it, because I just remember Scott County, but it's in Rugby, Tennessee, is where this place is located.
The jail's in Huntsville. Yeah.
Okay, the jail's in Huntsville. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Historic Rugby After Dark is our second location, and that's actually a partnership with Historic Rugby Inc. It's about 20 miles from the jail. So you can actually have a whole weekend. You can come and investigate the jail and then also Historic Rugby.
Okay, that's super cool.
Yeah.
All right. Now, I tell you, we definitely want to talk about that. I want to talk about the jail, but first, let's talk about the show. You've been doing this show for how many years now? How many seasons?
We just finished season 6 and going into season 7 this year. So,
gosh, that is awesome. That is awesome.
Yeah, I think you and I met maybe I was in season 3, I think.
I think so.
Yeah.
I think so. Gosh, that's crazy. And
Mhm.
that's that's the way to grind it too. And I think it's a really cool show because I mean it's you on your bike and you go to these locations, and I mean it's it's not cluttered up with a bunch of other stuff like some of your other
Yeah.
paranormal shows. Um
Yeah. I mean, I like to keep it really simple with it. I like to keep the episodes relatively short, anywhere from 20 to 40 minutes, just so that we can cover the history and then also cover the story as to why we're there and then the actual paranormal investigation. We did something a little bit different here with season 6, and we did all the episodes live, and it ended up being a huge hit doing it that way. I traveled to different places every week, and it was originally going to be 2-hour live where people could investigate and interact with me. And then I was going to be investigating 2 to 3 hours afterwards. And then re-releasing those episodes as produced episodes here this year, either in February or March. Probably looking like it's more going to be March. But that was a really cool way to do it, because by the end of the season, I mean, we were having over 300 people live on the show interacting and doing these investigations with me, which was something that was really kind of unexpected, but it was a great turn. And a lot of these locations, it worked really good for to promote the tourism and to promote the location itself, because each of the locations that I highlighted here in season 6 were either locations that either had never been investigated before or had only been investigated a handful of times, and they were either museums, historic home places, or historic villages. And so it really gave the opportunity to get these locations out there to a different market that maybe had never heard of the locations before.
And also, like, there's a lot of people that would love to go on a paranormal investigation that maybe are not able to do so. And this, by you doing this live, this gives them an opportunity to kind of experience what it's like going on a real investigation.
Yeah, so I've been investigating a little over 12 years, and I started out with a team, and I started out really doing a lot of lives. They were really a big hit, and so this would have been way early on, before lives, way before TikTok, way before things like that became more mainstream. And then when I branched off to do solo investigating and do ghost biker explorations, it was one of those things. I would keep the locations confidential because they were going to be part of my season. And because I am solo and the episodes are self-produced and everything, it was something that would take me most of the year to get all of this together, because we put the episodes together like a produced show that you would see on Discovery or Travel or any of those channels. And so they were a big hit and people really wanted them. I would try to go on every now and then throughout the year and maybe do a live if I was working at an event or doing like an event investigation. But it really was kind of, the idea was born out of the fact that it's so extremely busy this year. I didn't have the time to travel to the locations, go through hours and hours of evidence, and then the hours that goes to putting the episodes together. It was really just kind of an idea to make sure that I still had a season. I really didn't anticipate it to be that successful. And I was honestly blown away, because I know one of the episodes we did the Kentucky Music Hall of Fame up there. And like I said, there was over 300 people on the live. And within a week, it had over 25,000 views just in a very short period of time. So,
Gosh, wow.
I think that the Ghost Biker seasons are going to change just a little bit to incorporate more lives. But because the produced episodes are such a big hit, we'll still continue with those. It'll just kind of maybe shift a little bit, and there'll be a lot more content that's coming out.
Now what part of Kentucky were you at? What town?
That one was in Rock Castle, Kentucky. So, so southeastern Kentucky. We also did one in London, Kentucky.
People in Kentucky. I did a show in Kentucky, probably not that long ago, just a few weeks back ago, and I tell a joke on my show, a ghost hunting joke, and afterwards, this guy, they came up, people talk to you after the show, and the guy was like, "Hey, you guys really into the paranormal investigation?" And I was like, "Well, yeah." I said, "Yeah, we try to go on them as much as we can." you got to come to my house. He was trying to get stuff at his house. I'm like, well, wait a minute. But he had the craziest stories. He was told me a really cool story. He saw this dark figure come in. And I mean, he was, you could tell this guy had seen something. So I was like, and they were telling me all about the places in Kentucky that are haunted. And I was like, this is really cool. I got to tell this bit more because I'm getting cool stories afterwards.
Yeah. And, the really cool thing about Kentucky, so they really embrace their paranormal tourism. And I wish that was something that we did more here in Tennessee, because just here in East Tennessee, there are so many locations within a close radius of each other, with us, with the jail, the historic Rugby, the historic Harriman Hospital, Brushy Mountain Prison, all the way down into Chattanooga. And then, of course, if you get over into Middle Tennessee, you've got all those plantations and a lot of the Civil War areas. And so, but the cool thing about Kentucky is they actually have this initiative where they partner with their tourism commissions and the travel commissions there. And they have the, basically, it's like the Haunted Kentucky Passport. And it's really encouraging, and it's kind of helping these more rural areas to kind of capitalize on a different side of tourism. And it's really been successful for them. I know that I believe they've been doing this for 7 or 8 years, and it's starting to kind of migrate more over into the Eastern Kentucky area. And so we partner a lot with, I partner a lot with Kelly from the London Kentucky Tourism Commission, and now moving on up into Rockcastle. But Kentucky itself has so many stories with the Appalachian Triangle and Hellier, and the Paranormal Museum is there in Somerset, Kentucky. So a lot of stories come out from that area, and it's really cool to see that they're embracing this side of tourism that is something that they normally don't, a lot of places don't do. And so we're trying to do that with our company, History, Highways, and Haunts, and then with Ghost Biker itself, because that's how I tailor my episodes, is the history and the travel are first and foremost, and then the paranormal is just icing on the cake whenever you're able to get activity.
Now, you said Appalachian Triangle. Is that kind of like the Bermuda Triangle, but like with moonshine?
Well, a lot of these places, they tend to, to make it legit haunted, you got to add a triangle to it, with, you see that in Alaska, and, people always want to connect the dots. So yeah, it's right in that area. It's a high saturation of paranormal activity, cryptid activity, UFO activity. So high strangeness, very a lot of supernatural activity right in this one particular area. And a lot of it relates to the cave systems, Mammoth Cave being up there. But this is something that I'm looking at potentially highlighting in one of my future seasons that we're working on. Yeah. Because it's really interesting, the high strangeness that you see in that particular area.
Well, I love it. So many cool episodes to watch on your show, on the Ghost Biker show. I have one in particular that I absolutely, that's a favorite. And I would love to go ahead and talk about it right now. Your investigation of the Brushy Mountain, penitentiary, you can go watch on YouTube now. But first of all, you stayed all night in this old prison, Brushy Mountain, abandoned, penitentiary, no longer, in service, but is still there standing. And it seems like it still has some prisoners in there too.
Still definitely it does. Yeah.
And you stayed all night.
Yes. Brushy's one of my favorite places, because it's not too far from where I grew up. They actually took our senior class there to see it when when the prison was actually in operation. That would have been in 98. The jail did shut down, or prison. I have a jail. I keep wanting to call this a jail. But the prison actually shut down in 2009, and it's got such a interesting paranormal reputation. It was known as the end of the line. James Earl Ray was housed there. Essentially, the worst of the worst were housed in this prison. It's in the shape of a cross, and also one of the walls is made out of the mountain itself. And so, the terrain is very rugged. It's just a place. I mean, I definitely encourage people to go and visit there. Now it's open as a tourist destination where you can get moonshine. You can go in and take a tour, and you can even eat there. Now, I've investigated it on 6 occasions. 5 of those occasions were actually before the prison opened up to the public. And it was really interesting to see how the activity changed over time, because we were one of the first couple of teams to go in there. And then, now hundreds of people have investigated Brushy. But on this particular occasion, I did highlight this episode in season 2, episode 1, called End of the Line. And it was part of a collaboration investigation with Soul Sisters Paranormal. But during that investigation, we did a flashback to the second time that I investigated there. And on that second time, I actually was part of a full weekend investigation. On Friday night, I investigated by myself. On Saturday night, it was over Easter weekend, so they invited about 6 or 7 of their favorite teams that had investigated already to come back and investigate that weekend. And so this would have been way before they opened. I think this was in 2016, I believe, when I spent the night there. But I was coming off of the full investigation by myself that night and decided I was going to sleep a little bit. It was my first time sleeping in a location. And so I decided I wanted to sleep in the hole. The hole is the solitary confinement area. And it's just like it sounds. Basically, you're down in a hole. These cells are completely dark. And so the people could be in there up to, 28 days. And if you're in a location where you're in complete darkness and, you don't have sound and all that sort of thing, you're kind of, when you come out, a lot of people have a hard time seeing, have a hard time functioning because you are in that sensory deprived state, if you will. It was said they always gave them 2 buckets, one to use the bathroom in and one for their food. And it was just a place you definitely, if you were inside of Brushy, you didn't want to be there. And so I laid down about 8:30 that morning, ended up sleeping for about 3.5 hours. And I got 3 minutes and 15 seconds of, in my opinion, some of my best episode or best evidence that I've ever captured. Some of it is residual. Some of it is intelligent. And I do have to say, because, I think we're going to highlight that here in just a few minutes. There was no power at that point in time. Laundry is up on the 2nd floor above the hole. There was no power in there. No lights in the entire prison, or no power to have caused us to capture some of the things that we captured. It was truly residual stuff. I was the only person on the property, with the exception of my 2 friends who they're over the paranormal investigations there. And so they were actually asleep in the office at that time. And so, I got some of the best sleep that I had ever gotten in a location. And
Really?
I wasn't
You
expecting
slept
that.
easy there.
I did. I
That's
think
so
I was
crazy.
extremely tired from coming off of that investigation, and then knowing that I was going to be investigating that evening and also the entire night that was going to be coming up. But I feel like, and so that kind of started a trend. I will, if I get the opportunity, I will sleep at some of these locations, because I do feel like you're going into that vulnerable state and the spirits just interact different with it. So when you're in that state.
I have a hard time falling asleep in hotels. I couldn't imagine laying on a prison bed, bunk. And I've been there, man. It's not like a real tidy feeling place.
No. And at that time, like I said, there was no power. I think now they've got lights and got stuff in there, but there was no power. And I chose the bunk that I chose. It was the one that had the least feathers and bird bones on it. I remembered having a conversation as I was going through before I started investigating that night or the night before. And that Brushy has a lot of snakes. They've got rattlesnakes, and they've got a lot of snakes on the property. And so I remember walking through and seeing the grates, and my friend Tiffany was like, she looked down and there was bird bones in the grates, and she was like, "Oh, the snakes have been eating pretty good lately." And so I just remembered when I went in there, I had a little sleeping bag with a quilt, and so I picked the bunk that had the least crap on it. And I had my boots sitting in the floor, and I just remember when I laid down, I was like, I need to make sure I check my boots because I don't want to have a snake in those boots. But that was my biggest thought at the time. Now, if I would have heard some of what I captured in real time, I don't know if I would have slept as well, because
that's the thing. Because the stuff that you picked up, and I was amazed, because it wasn't just, it's stuff that went on in a prison, and it's crazy. Well, I tell you what, let's see if there's any way we can get a clip of that episode up here so everyone can check it out. I think that would be great if we could get that up.
And I'll play it, and then I'll talk about it after.
Gotcha. Let's check this out. This is actually you.
Yeah.
Can we? There we go.
Do I need to restart that a little bit?
Yeah, let's fast forward real quick, because I want to hear the night.
Yeah, let me wind it up. I didn't realize it was so low.
Shoot.
And you can kind of hear me snoring too. Now, a couple things about that. So, like I said, the excuse me, there was no power. So, the laundry running upstairs was pretty significant. You would imagine that was 8:30 in the morning. I think that was maybe 2 hours in, so that would have been around 10.
And there's no laundry. There's no,
there's machines up there, but
Yeah.
they don't work because there's no
Yeah.
power. So to me, that would have been residual, something that would have probably been happening around that time. Also, I don't know for sure if that was a ball bouncing, but to me, it sounded like somebody for 5 minutes sitting there just bouncing a ball against the wall. And I was on a podcast talking about this, and it just so happened one of the people I was talking to was a former corrections officer at a different facility. And he was like, that actually makes a lot of sense because at that time period, that would have been a common thing that people would have, or that the prisons would have given to the inmates, because it was not something, a rubber ball was not something they could easily fashion into some type of contraband.
Yeah.
And so that was interesting. Of course, the talking back and forth, the not really gets me every time, because to me that was intelligent. I mean, I hadn't been asleep. I think that was 20-30 minutes into when I was sleeping. And whoever it was, I don't know if they were curious about me being there or if it was one of those where they're like, just wait, but
Well,
between that,
the help me got me. I was like, when I help me, you can clearly hear that.
you
I'm
hear
like,
two
oh
of them.
God.
Yeah. And I definitely encourage anybody, if you couldn't hear that, to go back and listen to it with headphones, because you really get the gravity of just how clear some of these voices are. And they fit with the conversation, they fit with the situation going on, they even fit with any type of residual activity that could have been happening as well. So at that time, basically what I had done is I put cameras up while I slept, and also had the recorder sitting out. And honestly, I was really amazed whenever I went back to review the evidence. I was honestly kind of dumbfounded by the extent of it.
Let me ask you your opinion about this, because like I said, you've been to a lot of places, you've done a lot of investigations. I've often wondered about this because it seems like most of your investigations where people go to investigate, it's always taken place somewhere where something tragic, or it's been dark, depressing, something happened there, and that's why there's a lot of high activity versus like, I mean, what if Disneyland is haunted, or Disney
I've heard
World?
it is.
Well, I mean, so
Yeah.
when you go there though, or do you hear like everyone having a good time, or riding Space Mountain? I mean, you know what I mean? I mean, why is it always got to be somewhere, shitty, where
Well,
something happened?
Well, it's not always, and that's what's interesting is, one of the things that people started to notice whenever we were home during the pandemic was people started to experience a lot of activity in their homes. Now, granted, there was a lot of crazy things happening during the pandemic, that could trigger this, but I believe one of the big things was the fact that we were all home and we were all stopping and we were all paying attention. And so, you know, in these homes, not all the time, not something's not always bad happened in, these homes. Now, a good example of this is historic rugby. There was nothing extremely tragic that happened there. There was a tragic incident that happened at the Tabard Inn. The Tabard Inn also burned twice. So there's that. But most of the homes there inside Rugby, whether they're being lived in now or whether they're part of the museum village that you can go in, have had a lot of activity in it. We believe in that instance, because of the way the village was set up as a utopian society and almost as an escape or a new colony, if you will, from England. We believe in that instance that it's because the spirits are staying in a place where they're happiest. Now, that's not always the case. But if you believe in like a deposit of energy and such, it could be positive or negative energy that is staying within a location, especially when you're dealing with residual activity, which is, if people aren't familiar with that, which would be activity that's almost like the stone tape theory, or an action that just continues to play over time around a certain time, certain date, that sort of thing. So it's not always negative, but it does, or not, I don't want to say negative, but where intense or potentially negative situations have happened. It's not always like that, but that does tend to have the greater concentration of activity. But to what you're saying, I have heard that that Disneyland and Disney World is quite haunted.
Well, I tell you what, we got our first question here popped up here, by Thirsty Tom. Miranda,
Hey,
what focal lengths do you use in the field when filming? Any favorites?
I wouldn't say that I have any favorites because I use such a variety of cameras, and it really it depends on whether it's me filming vlog style with just myself, or if I have my videographer with me. I use everything from drone cameras to like the one that I just had, and that was a stationary camera. I couldn't change a focal length, so I don't really have a favorite because I use such a variety, and it really depends on the location I'm at, that as to whether I'm filming, because I'm not so much now B-roll. That's when I'm filming more beauty shots and that sort of thing. But for me, I do a lot of raw filming, so it's about that moment and trying to capture more so than trying to, get the beauty shots and that sort of thing. If that makes sense. I guess what I'm saying is I really don't have a favorite because I use so many different cameras, and some of them don't give me the option to change my focal lengths.
Cool. Now, that video in particular,
Mhm.
like I said, you didn't hear anything like that live while you were sleeping or anything. Nothing woke you up.
No, there was a couple times that I woke up but didn't know why I woke up. Um, it was quite a restful sleep other than kind of tossing and turning, because once I got in, because those beds were very narrow. So once I got in and went to sleep, there was a couple times that I never felt anything touch me or anything really loud. That now there were some loud bangs, but going back, I never really heard anything to just direct me to like sit up or be startled. It was
Now,
mostly just kind of wake up from the sleep.
as an investigator, when you got back home and you listened to those EVPs and the thought, my God, that's what was going on while I was asleep. I mean, that had to make the hairs on the back of your neck stand up. I mean, that was, I could only imagine how creepy that was.
It really was, because a lot of the time when I'm editing and, and working and going through evidence. So sometimes I'm sitting at work, because I used to work in corporate before I got into the museum business. But I would sit and work on graphic design, work on marketing, and listen to my audio. And normally I would listen to my audio because I always have an audio recorder. Even if my camera picks up audio, I always have a static audio recorder with it and link that with the video, because sometimes some of the camera options are just not as crisp with the audio as my recorders are. And so usually a lot of the time I'll listen to the audio first before I sit and go through, and then I'm able to go back and check myself with the camera to see if it picked up as well. But I remember on that particular one, I was actually sitting in my corporate office working, and as soon as I hear this, I'm like calling several people. I had some designers that worked under me. I'm calling them in and I'm like, okay, I need you to listen to this and tell me what you hear. I'm not going to tell you what I hear and what I'm experiencing or what I'm doing, but I want you to listen to this and tell me if you hear this. And we were just, I think work ceased for about an hour that day, because I was just so thrilled and excited about it. And then the gravity kind of hits you of like, wait a minute, we actually captured this, and what was happening in that moment while I was in there sleeping. Other times I'm sitting in my house at midnight listening to audio and watching video, and it can get a little creepy when that happens.
especially where you're at now, because you've got a beautiful old home, and there's even a graveyard on your
There
land,
is. There
which
is.
suits you perfectly, by the way.
It does, it does. I'm able to, work with my dowsing rods to, kind of dowsing rods can do a lot of things. They can determine where, bodies are buried, determine the sex of the bodies, that sort of thing. There's a lot they can do, and I am a novice at that, but I know that, Dr. Bass out of, UT there is.
Absolutely, Dr. Bass.
Yes,
Yes.
yes. He's one of the pioneers, I guess. I mean, they've been doing this for a long time, but he's been one of them that's really brought it to the forefront in educating people. And it's something I want to learn more about because I've always had a lot of luck with the dowsing rods. And so there's a lot of people who are buried there that the stones have been moved. And so I'm able to go up there and kind of test that to see if that works and kind of um, get better with my abilities with that.
Okay, so
I
I
guess.
got to ask this real quick. Okay, first of
Mhm.
all, if my wife's watching, when she watches this episode, she's going to give me hell because she's used the dowsing rods, and I've made fun of her. I'm like, oh, what are you doing? But I didn't know. First of all, I'm honored. I had the honor to do a show in a cave with Dr. Bass when he was doing his presentations.
Oh.
I got to do a show opening for Dr. Bass before he did one of his presentations. But in case the viewers don't know who Dr. Bass is,
Ah.
um, he was he was the founder of the Body Farm at the University of Tennessee, to where they could study corpses. So basically, there's a spot at the University of Tennessee, guys, to where bodies are just kind of laying out all day.
It's
Uh,
the only one, I believe, in the
yeah,
country.
I
Yeah.
believe it is the only one in the
Yeah.
country, and also he's wrote some very fantastic books. Dr. Bass has. Uh, Google him, check him out. It's really good stuff. Dr. Bass is
Mhm.
a sweetheart of a man. Pleasure to know him.
Yeah.
But Dr. Bass is a fan of the dowsing rods.
Yeah.
Oh my God! And if Dr. Bass is, damn, I'm gonna have to give it another look now. I've always
Unless yeah, I'm pretty sure. I'm pretty sure it's Dr. Bass that does a lot with the dowsing rods and
Okay.
speaks on those. My mind is drawing a blank right now on the other gentleman, but yeah, dowsing rods
You've had
are
luck
just.
with them too, though. You've had luck with
Oh
them.
yeah, yeah.
Really?
Hmm.
Okay. I will, like I said, Antoinette, she's like, it works. It works. And I'm like, shut up, woman. No, it don't. She's like, it works.
Well,
So,
they definitely work for finding water. And interestingly enough, so the farmhouse I live in, it was my grandparents' farmhouse, and my papa, he grew up here. It was built in 1902, and the land has been in the family for a long time. And so the house, before I remodeled it and moved back up here, it no one had lived in it for about, at that point in time, about 15, 16 years. And so, on a whim, I was supposed to go investigate a residential case with my friend Tiffany, and something happened. We weren't able to do that. And my mom just kind of was like, well, if you're wanting to just go investigate, why don't you go investigate over at the farmhouse? And so we were like, why not? And now I do know, my papa did pass away here. There've been a couple deaths here, but it's all family, and it was all, nothing negative or anything had ever happened here. All good memories. And so, I wasn't really expecting anything to happen, but, I'd set my equipment out, and of course, I always start my recorder before I do any investigating just to see, because a lot of the time things happen before we actively investigate. And, I had the ovilus sitting out too, and I only got 2 words the whole time that I was investigating here. And the first word that it said was Sam. And my great grandfather's name was Samuel Oscar, and my great great grandfather's name was Sam Lawson. And they are both buried up in the cemetery up there.
that is
And
so
so
cool, dude.
that was the only names, only words we got. And this was an Ovilus 5. This was, independent of a phone. It was just an Ovilus 5. And then the other thing when I was unpacking, and this was as I was unpacking everything, that it said this, or the first word. And so I pull my dowsing rods out and sit them on the table. And as soon as I set those on the table, I got the word water. And to me, that made me giddy because that's what the folks who lived here on the farm would have used those rods for, or any spirit from that era. I know there are 2 natural springs here on the property. And so they would have used those rods to find that. And they wouldn't have used them for anything themselves for anything other than that. So they knew. It's like I'm sitting all this equipment out, and they're probably thinking, what is this? And then I set that out, and it's like, oh, water, So to me, it's nothing creepy, nothing scary. That was something that just actually really excited me, because it proved that, to me, the obelisk there was not just spitting out mumbo jumbo at that point. I was able to correlate both of those items with something. I was really able to test that. And then also just that activity doesn't always have to be creepy. You can get a lot of really intelligent and some things that you can kind of back up scientifically just through these investigations.
Now, although I know like that being, well, here we got a question real quick we can grab from Lisa. How do you spell his name so I can look him up? Are you talking Dr. Bass? I believe it's just as it sounds, just BASS.
Yeah.
You could just Google Dr. Bass, and even University of Tennessee. It'll kind of give you more about the body farm, which that's like I said, that's a whole new cool thing to check out on its own.
Yeah.
Dr. Bass, a very interesting guy. Definitely look him up. Very interesting. Miranda, I've always like I said, it's different with your place. Like you said, it was kind of like your grandfather's and stuff, but I've always heard never go and do an investigation at your own place. I've always heard never.
And that's what I tell people whenever when people reach out. I don't do nearly as many residentials as I used to. And, because it's its own different beast. And, I always tell them, it's like, are you sure you want me or someone to come to your house? Because you're the one that has to sleep there. And sometimes we see, hear, and get things that you can't see and unhear. And you remember that when you go to lay down at night. Most of the time when people have asked me to come in, it's been mostly to either try to validate that they're not crazy, or also that they are, maybe there's a logical explanation for what they're experiencing. I have, of course, at that time, I didn't realize I would be moving in here. But interestingly enough, the contractor that I was using on some of the remodel, he wouldn't stay late. And he did ask me by the time he was getting done with things, because being a house from the early 1900s, nothing's square, nothing is level. And he asked me, he said, has anyone ever passed in here? Or have you ever had any activity? And I'm like, oh, there's spirits here. And he's like, yeah, he said, I realized that because when I was going in there working and would start cussing the work and stuff that was done a long time ago that I was having to work with, things would start happening. And he never really expanded too much on it. But of course, I've had a few odd things happen, but I've nothing ever creepy because it's family. But now in my old house, I did.
Well, I'll tell you what, let's do this, Brandon. Let's do this. I tell you what, I want to pick back up on that. Also, I want to talk about the Scott County Jail. Yes. I had my own experience when I was there, but I tell you what, let's get over here to our sponsor. Let's get a quick message on this commercial break. When we come back, let's talk about the jail.
Yes.
Have you ever wondered, or maybe just thought to yourself, if there were others just like you? You know, people with extraordinary abilities, psychogenic advancement, and perhaps unique intuitions. Maybe you just wondered if there were other people who experienced unimaginable, unexplained, or even unusual and paranormal events. Are there people who have more questions, more fears than answers? Well, you're not alone. You've never been alone. We believe you. Sign up for EA today.
Business. It's your property.
Your assets are worth protecting. Blacklight Investigative and Surveillance Services specializes in patrolling and inspecting residential or commercial property against fire, theft, vandalism, terrorism, and illegal activity. People and buildings are monitored to prevent crime. Keep your property, your people, and your assets safe from threat. Our elite staff are dual licensed private investigators and security guards. Blacklight Investigative and Surveillance Services.
Go to blacklightiss.com.
All right, we are back here with the ghost biker herself, Miranda Young. Miranda, okay. Now we had talked about your show, the Ghost Biker, the one on YouTube. People can go catch a lot of really cool episodes right now. But you also you're co-owner of the Scott County Jail in Huntsville, Tennessee, to where people come and do tours, and have their own paranormal experience, like I had when we were there. But I would love to let's talk about that now. Let's talk about what got you interested in doing this and what got you interested in the jail itself. A little bit of history about the jail.
Sure. So, so in 2020, I ended up leaving corporate, and because I had a successful marketing career before I moved into museum ownership, and so I ended up leaving corporate and was looking for an opportunity to move back closer to my family here in Scott County or in the Huntsville, Tennessee area, and so. I do haunted motorcycle tour rides and such. And so my business partner, Christy, she helps me out with those sometimes on occasion.
Hello,
And
Christy.
we were looking to maybe do some type of haunted motorcycle ride that used the jail as a stop. And so I knew the jail, it had closed in 2008. And I wasn't really sure. I knew they had got a tourism grant for it, but I wasn't sure what they were doing with it. Through one of the executives over here, I found out that it wasn't being used as for anything. And so I ended up reaching out to Christy and saying, "Hey, would you be interested in approaching the town with me and seeing if we could open up the museum or the jail as either a true crime museum and a paranormal research center, or both, you know?" And so we sat down, we came up with a plan as to what we wanted to do. We knew we didn't want to just open it up for paranormal investigations. We wanted to make it accessible to the community and share this history, because there's so much history associated with this jail. And so we reached out to the town mayor and presented our idea, had a full business plan on there, and presented it to him as well as to the alderman. They loved the idea. And so in September of 2021, we opened it up during the day as a true crime museum, and then during the evening for after dark tours and private paranormal investigations. And so we say we got something for everybody, because we've got the flashlight tours for the paranormal enthusiasts and the history buffs, but then the guided ghost hunts for people who want something a little more immersive, and they can go in and they can do a 3-hour guided ghost hunt with myself and my business partner. And then also for those that are looking for maybe they've got a team, maybe they're more experienced, they can rent the jail out till certain time in the night. We don't allow people to sleep there, but they can come in and they can do a private paranormal investigation. A little bit of history about the jail. It was built in 1904 and in operation until 2008. And it's built like a little castle. So it's a little castle here in the mountains of East Tennessee. And most of the inmates that were in there early on, from the early 1900s up until about the 60s, were typically moonshiners, ridge runners, that sort of thing. Moonshining was a really, really big thing here. It kept the prison doors or the jail doors going open all the time. But we've had everything from a sheriff that was killed at the front door. That was Sheriff R.D. Ellis, and he was actually shot ambush style at the front door, and that's still one of our unsolved murders. He's also one of our local resident spirits that is seen on all 3 floors, both residual and intelligent activity. We've also had, we have a lot of mob mountain justice here. And so we've had at least 6 inmates who have been taken out of the jail by mobs of people masking up, breaking into the jail, and taking the inmate to different spots within the area and either executing or lynching them. We do believe that there were more, but we do know of at least 6 we've got the newspaper articles and death certificates of. We've also had sheriffs who have spent time behind bars there themselves. So a lot of history associated with this jail from the time that the doors opened in 1904 until they closed in 2008. The jailers, they did live on site up until the 70s. And so you had whole families that were raised in there. And so you got to remember, whenever these folks were busting in and breaking into the jail and taking the inmates out, they were also breaking into the sheriffs and jailers' homes as well. Because that was on the entire bottom floor of the jail. It was built the way it was and when it was, because in 1904, there was an influx of people that came to the area for the coal and timber boom. And so the county wanted to show that they meant business when it came to law and order. So they went and they mined this local sandstone and built the jail into this castle shape. Where they did there in the county seat, which is right there in the center of the county. So a lot of history surrounding that, a lot of stories that our spirits like to tell. Spirits in there like to talk, and they like to let you know they're there. They're intelligent. They're aware of what's going on. And if you come in and you want to have a conversation, I mean, not so much what did you do and why are you in here, that sort of thing. But if you really listen and let them talk, they'll share their stories, and it's something that I'm honestly amazed every day when I go in there at just how much they want to do it.
Okay, I want to say, whenever we went, we got to go visit the Scott County Jail, and it was, I mean, one thing I liked about it, one thing I did like about it compared to other places, sometimes when you go, sometimes you'll go to places that are haunted, it's nasty, dirty, and you're like, there's asbestos in my teeth now, this feels comfortable, you're in a jail, I mean, but it feels comfortable, so I remember, though, getting there, and I didn't so much have an uneasy feeling or an uncomfortable feeling. I was like, this is cool. We're checking out some stuff, and I really didn't. I mean, like Antoinette was, really enjoying a lot of stuff that she was getting, the pictures and stuff. And you guys are so great as ghost tour to kind of, you guys are wonderful hosts, but it wasn't until Christy, let's go up to this jail cell and see if we can get something, and I'm like, okay, cool, let's go up there and check it out. And she had all the gadgets out, and she started asking questions. The light goes up. Okay, kind of weird. Does it again, gets a little more crazier, the light and stuff. Things are blinking. And then, okay, we're inside the cell, just me and her, and we're sitting there, and something in the back corner starts to move. And these cells aren't huge.
No.
They're not huge. So I'm sitting there, and I can hear something getting off of the bed, getting off of the and I'm like, what the hell's really I'm looking at her like, you hear this? It's coming. It's coming towards us. And it kept getting louder, and it literally sounded like somebody getting off the bed, getting off the bunk, getting down, and coming closer to us. And I was like, holy shit. And I couldn't take it. I freaked out. I said, let's get the hell out. Let's go. So I come running, hauling ass out of that jail cell. And there's actually a recording of me freaking out, hauling ass out of there. How long are we going to wait till it gets us? It was so crazy, dude. And I've heard, other stories. People, like I said, Vinny Vineyard was on, last episode, and they did an investigation. He was like, he called me the next day, and he's like, yeah, that place is haunted as hell. And I said, I told you, dude. I said, I told you, that is one little haunted little place right there.
It is. And like I said, it's amazing. I first investigated it back in 2014. That was before they got the tourism grant and were able to fix it up. They got that in 2017. When I investigated, I never would have dreamed that I would be, running the museum and stuff out of there. But it was active then when I was there. The drunk tank was the most active at that point, and we were getting audible. We were hearing it with our own ears, so we were getting disembodied crying and sobbing. It wasn't until Chris and I got the keys to the jail, I think about 2.5 months before we actually opened to the public. And so we spent a lot of time sitting in there, talking to them, telling them what we were going to be doing, and really kind of seeing what causes them to interact. And we found that music was something that really worked really well. And the cell that you guys were in when this happened, this was the old women's cell up on the 3rd floor.
So I was in the women's cell.
You were.
Ah, okay.
Now, we did find out that during the later years, that's where they did actually segregate some of the male inmates who were they were maybe the sex offenders or people who didn't. Yeah.
Okay. So he wanted to rape me. That's what was happening there. Okay. All right. Nice to know.
See, we didn't know that because we would get a lot of women's voices and a lot of women's responses, but we would get several male names that were commonly in there. And we found in that cell, and this is something we found out actually after you all had investigated there, that they tend to really respond very well to comedy, to joking, to cutting up, to flirting with them, dancing with them. If you go in there and you're interrogating them, you may get some responses. But if you go in there and you're very lighthearted, especially in that room, I mean, they just it goes crazy. And so we
Well,
did
I'm sure
find
I
out
said some
from
dumb shit. So
probably. That's probably what triggered them. Now we did find out from one of the former officers that was there. He said that was where they did house some of the men, that they had to segregate them because jails and prisons are not safe places for people who do that sort of thing. So they kind of had to separate them off, and it really explained some of the answers and responses that we were getting. Now, you know, when you came down, I have to laugh as you're telling that story because I know I was working down there with Antoinette. We were using the dowsing rods, and I think we were in the drunk tank. And when you and Chris came down, I mean, it was, you clearly had seen something, because I think you were,
dude,
yeah.
I just couldn't believe it. I was like, I can't believe this is happening.
And
This
Chris
is just
too.
nuts. I was
Yeah.
like, this is nuts. I can't believe this is happening.
Well, and I don't know everything that Vinny and them captured. They told me a little bit. I'm really looking forward to seeing the episode that they're putting out. But some of the things they captured when they came down before they left, they said the exact same thing. He's like, dude, he's like, this place is no joke.
No, it's
And
no joke. That's the real deal.
yeah, and I saw one of the episodes. I'm drawing a blank on the lady that investigates with them. She put out her video. I think it's like maybe 7 minutes. And while I was given the tour, they caught Big Luke and her and another lady, they wanted to go in cold and they didn't want to know any history or anything. And so as I'm giving the tour on the 3rd floor, they're having the handcuffs that we have hanging on the wall there, they start swinging.
Oh my
The
God.
pendulum that was hanging there, it starts swaying. They're getting hot spots. I know that she caught a really great EVP of a child that as soon as they walked in was like, "Hey," and just as clear as can be. So, and then also when they were up in Big Roy's cell, there's certain spirits in there that we don't always tell people what other teams catch, because we want to see if they're able to get something that goes along with what other teams and stuff have got. And when they were in Big Roy's cell, they got a lot of activity that other teams had gotten that really just validates that. Roy really likes the women, and we believe he was in there for some crimes against women. And but now he'll talk to men, and he'll be a little challenging with them when they're in there. And I think when they wouldn't talk, I think they got an EVP on the spirit box that when they were like, "Are you not going to talk to us?" and it said, "You ugly," and or "Y'all ugly," or something like that. And
They had
it's
to be
just
talking about
interesting.
Vinny.
I'm sure. I'm sure. And so they got a lot of really cool evidence just in this little 7-minute video. So I can't wait to see what those guys got, because I would imagine they're not easily shaken or startled.
Oh no, not at all, not at all. And like I said, I told him, I said, you're gonna love that place. And sure enough, he told me, he's like, dude, you're right. That place is haunted as hell. I said, dude, I couldn't believe when that was happening to me. I was like, this is actually happening. And the Christy was keeping her cool there for the longest there, but I was like, hey, I got to get the hell out of here. It's coming closer. I'm getting out of here. What's something, because you're there all the time. You're always there. What's something that has happened here of lately? Something cool.
There's been a lot lately, and of course the activity shifts. People will say, "Oh, the 3rd floor is the most haunted," is what I've heard, but just wait. And it shifts, and the 2nd floor is sometimes one of the things we get there a lot that actually really fascinates me are the footsteps. And I'm not talking just like you're a step here and there, but we get, especially on the jailer's walk and on the stairs, we'll get what will sometimes go as many as 13 to 15 footsteps. And it does a lot of what you were talking about, that it comes toward you.
Yes,
And
God, that is such a
yeah,
crazy, creepy feeling.
it is so creepy because you don't know what's going to come around the corner, and it's almost like you feel it. And
Yeah.
we first heard it when I was given a tour. I was orienting a team, and I was standing there and telling them, and we heard it walking up the jailer's walk, and we all stopped, and they're like, "Is somebody in here?" And it was coming towards us. And then all of a sudden it stops, and it's like it goes away. And the jailer's walk ends at the fire escape there. And so we literally go running towards it and look, because I'm sitting there thinking, I closed up earlier, went and grabbed something to eat, and then came back to let these folks in. And it's like someone had to have come in on me and been hiding back there, because it sounded like these heavy boot steps. Nothing was there. And we started consistently, we looked at the time to see when it was, and it was 9 o'clock when it happened. So it's like, okay, so we're always taking notes of when things happen to see if it could be residual. And so we started noticing, teams started getting this, and then we started getting it on tours. And I'll never forget, I had a group of 4 ladies up there, and I had taken them, and we were at the end of the flashlight tour. And the way we do the flashlight tours is we take you through room by room, we tell you the history, and then we play evidence that's captured either in video, audio, or through photos in the spots where they were captured. So you get the history as well as the paranormal findings. And so we were in the last area. I was talking about the footsteps. I actually played the footsteps. And after we're done, we've ended the tour. And of course, the lights are shut off. The power is shut off on the second and third floor. And as we're getting ready to go out, those same footsteps start up in the other hall, and they're literally coming towards us. And you just hear stomp, stomp, stomp as it's getting closer. And these 4 ladies, one of them, she's like grabbing her chest and saying, "Oh my God, I think I'm having a heart attack." The other lady is calling out to Jesus. The other lady is like backing up against me and like pushing me back against the bars. And I'm actually, I don't really get scared, but I got uneasy because I'm like, did somebody come in on us? And, you could literally feel the intensity of the presence coming closer to the door. And so we're in the bullpen when this is happening, and it stops, and then it runs the opposite direction. And they're like, "Oh, it's your business partner. It's Christy. She's come in." And I said, "Christy's given a tour over at Rugby. She's not even in town." And so, so I'm like, she's not coming in. Plus, we wouldn't do that to each other, because we know we're giving a tour. We're not going to do anything. And somebody might be asking questions or something. So we don't want to do anything that might contaminate. And as soon as we start to go again, it starts again. And these 3 ladies, they were such good sports about it, because afterwards they were like, "I wanted to experience something, but I don't think I wanted to experience that." And then the others like, "Oh, it was the best experience of my life," because it was so creepy. But when we came down, the door was locked, and I was unlocking the door for them, and they were like, "So nobody really came in?" And I was like, "No, there's nobody here. There's no way they could come through this locked door." And so that was actually a realization moment for them. But that's been one of the more recent things that has not just happened during investigations, but also happened on tours. And we've even had people on our daytime tours that's there just doing the self-guided stuff, just going along, and they'll be the only person on the floor, and they'll hear somebody coming towards them. And it really is unnerving to hear that, because you just don't know what's going to come around that corner.
And the other thing about that is it's more than just the sound. It's almost like you can feel
You feel it.
a presence
Yes. Yes.
coming towards you.
Yes.
So, and like I said, and that jail cell wasn't that huge. It was just it's like they're somebody's getting off the bunk. What are you doing, dude? What are you coming to me for? And I mean, it was crazy, and they making all kinds of noise, and it was it was nuts. Because you mentioned this, and this is something like I can't wait to go back, first of all, because I would love to see something. You said people do sometimes see the sheriff, an actual apparition of the sheriff. Have you ever seen the sheriff, or some stories and maybe, of someone actually seeing it?
So we do have a couple pictures of shadow figure that we do believe is Sheriff Richard Ellis. So couple interesting, he's got a couple interesting features. He was very, very tall. He was 6'8", and
Oh, wow.
he was also a Baptist preacher. And so he did run under the stance, he ran back in 1920. He ran under the stance that he was going to abolish moonshine there in the community. And so being that a lot of the community was involved with moonshine, that did not bode well. And so a lot of people actually said if he did follow through with that, he was putting a target on his back.
So
And
he's 6'8", shadow. That's a big ass
Yes.
shadow.
Huge. Yeah.
That is huge.
And we actually had we had some folks on a guided ghost hunt, and again, most of the people doing the guided ghost hunts are people who haven't ever gone investigating before, or at least don't investigate with a team. And on this particular night, these ladies, they had never investigated before. I had 3 with me. Chris had 3 with her upstairs. And my group was down there asking questions in the drunk tank. We always tell people to take 3 pictures whenever they're doing that, so you've got something to compare it to. We started getting a lot of REM pod activity in there, getting a lot of intelligent responses as well. So one of the ladies took her camera out. She took 3 pictures. And after she took them, after the tour was over, she actually comes to us and she's like, I think I got something. And she wasn't overly interactive. She was mostly just observing and taking pictures and stuff the whole time. And she's like, I think I got something. And we looked at them, and she had taken 3 pictures. And on that 3rd picture, you actually see what looks like so the door frames are 7 feet. You see something that's almost kind of hunkered over and holding something. And it's this big shadow. It's not only blocking out what's there in the drunk tank, but also the door of the drunk tank. And we've gone in, we've torn this picture apart, analyzed it. We've had other people look at it, and we've not been able to find any kind of logical explanation for it. To me, it's a pretty incredible capture. And so we do think, and interestingly enough, there was a team that was here just before. I think they were the team that was here before Vinny and them, and they had set up a tripwire system inside of the drunk tank there. They were wrapping up their investigation, and they had gone outside, was asking questions at the door where the sheriff was shot. They weren't getting anything. So they come back in to right in front of the drunk tank, and we've got his picture hanging in there because that's our law enforcement appreciation room. And they start asking, they were like, how were you killed? And on their spirit box, they got the word shot. And they were like, wow, are we talking to you, Sheriff Ellis? Give us some kind of sign. And they had the camera on that tripwire for probably, I don't know, I would say 30, 45 minutes, and they hadn't gotten anything. And as soon as they asked that question for validation and confirmation if that was him, that entire tripwire just lights up. And that's not uncommon down there when you start talking about Ellis there in front of the drunk tanks. And interestingly enough, the drunk tanks are our bathrooms as well. So, people have caught what sounds like correction officers barking out orders in the bathroom. And so it makes sense that it's there, because with him being, now those were not the drunk tanks at that time. That would actually been his living quarters at that time, because that's downstairs on the first floor. And at the time in the 1920s, he was killed in 1925. And so he would have been living down there. But it is our drunk tank now. So it actually kind of makes sense, as much as he was against alcohol, that he might be hanging out there at the drunk tank too.
Now this question hasn't popped up, but I can see it right over here in the comments. I don't know if you can see it. Lisa had commented, I have seen shadow people, and I've even seen one with red glowing eyes.
Oh, wow.
First of all, freaking terrifying, Lisa. Terrifying, red glowing eyes. But I mean, a lot of people tend to see shadow figures. You know, I mean, a lot of times at the corner in your, the corner of your eye, you see something that I even have a friend that's got a shadow figure story that we're going to come on here in a few weeks. That's going to tell. He has the most terrifying shadow figure story you'll ever hear. I'm telling you. But we've got another. Deb says,
"Come on, Deb,
experience this place." Yes, you do, Deb. You want to experience the Scott County Jail? I promise you, this place is crawling with haunts and haunts.
Well, I don't know if I showed you the video. I feel like I don't know if I did or if we talked about it, but around the same time that this shadow figure was captured downstairs, we had a team out of Nashville come in, and they ended up capturing a shadow figure, pulling a picture off the wall. He actually threw it 4.5 feet on the second floor off the wall. And they caught it on camera. And what's fascinating about it, so we tried to recreate this situation, and we were unable to recreate it. It literally rips the picture off the wall, and the picture flips in midair and falls 4.5 feet. And every time we tried to recreate this, we couldn't get the picture to flip. We couldn't get enough momentum. But if you watch the video, and we've got that on the historic Scott County Jail website as well.
We can go see that on the website.
You can see it on the website. You can see it on the YouTube channel and also on our Facebook page.
Before we get out of here, let's make sure we put that out there so everybody can go check that out. I want to get to this question real quick because, like I said, there's a lot of stuff out there, especially in TV land, on the television shows, that is garbage. That's just there to get you for ratings and stuff. Luckily, I've known you for a while, Miranda. I know what you're saying is the truth. Absolutely. You're a very genuine person. And like I said, I have my own experiences there, so I know that place is real. But one question that I asked you a few years back when you were on my other podcast, the Abracadam, and this is something that I've always wondered with paranormal investigators. I was like, why don't they ask this question? And I asked you this, and what you told me was very interesting. But and not even trying, whether if you're a religious person or not. But I think this is a very rational question if you're talking to a ghost. And that is there or is there not a God or an afterlife or a heaven, a hell? And I will never forget you telling me that you have asked that question before. And you said it was almost like there was rules that they couldn't break.
And I've had several other people talk about the same thing, several other location owners. And these are people who, I feel like we get to actually do some really good research because we're in these places day in and day out. It's not a one and done situation. And I have gotten that on at least 3 different occasions because I like asking those type of questions about the afterlife and what's going on where they're at, or another dimension, what have you, wherever they are. And on multiple occasions, on 3 occasions that I can think of, one of them said they couldn't, that there were rules. And then the other ones had said because of the rule. And so and like I said, I know a couple other investigators who had the same situation where they asked that same question or similar question, and they got that. Now, is it a rule that they can't break, or is it a rule that we can't comprehend? I'm not really sure. I haven't gotten that far yet, but they can't tell us for whatever reason. At least the ones I've encountered.
God, that is so wild to me. That is absolutely just so wild. Because I remember when you told me that has stuck with me forever. And now when I think about that, I'm just like, wow, because like I said, I'm not a religious person, but I am a spiritual person.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe my loved ones are still around me, the ones that have passed, and I can just feel that. So I do truly believe in that, and I think that's just I'm cool with it. There's rules. I'm cool with it. What do you think, though? Some things are when you talked about other dimension. Maybe this is what we're picking up on, because like we've heard the saying that time is the past, future, and the present all exist at the same time.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, and that's a real theory out there that a lot of physicists believe. Do you think that's maybe possible? What's going on there at the Scott County Jail? We're just experiencing the past in this particular part of time.
Like a time slip.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, I think anything is possible, especially when you start seeing the behavior of the way some of these spirits are, because it's interesting, because in some instances you'll be having multiple spirit activity going on, and it's almost like, say if Roy and Dan is in some place, they're interacting, but they're not interacting like we're all three together, if that makes sense. To me, that's where the different dimension thing could actually really show. I had a guy on my show that was talking about some of the responses that he had gotten at a location there in New England, and I found that to be kind of interesting, the way he was talking, because some of these responses you get, you can only imagine maybe we appear to be the ghost to them.
I've thought about that. Like, remember the movie The Others? Did you ever see The Others? Such a great movie. If you guys haven't seen The Others, go watch it. I believe it was a remake, the one that we watched too. There's actually the real classic.
Yeah, I think so.
But it was The Sixth Sense before The Sixth Sense. The Others was, and you've always kind of wondered that, like, what if, they're seeing, oh my God, I saw this sawed off redheaded magician, scared the hell out of me. I mean, I don't know, but I mean, what if that's what they're experiencing? And imagine, how annoyed they are with, all these people walking around in black. Exactly.
And if you're saying, if you look at a lot of the responses that they give, like if we hear something and we're like, hello, and we get that, or get out, or you can imagine if they get a glimpse of us, if I'm appearing as a shadow figure to them or as an apparition to them, I can see where someone would be like, oh, get out. What is that? I mean, I think
who's this guy eating chips over here on my couch?
I mean, some of the responses we get, right? So I mean, I think anything is possible. It, to me, I'm always amazed by that, because we just never know what we're experiencing, and the fact that they are intelligent sometimes, and then the other times they're just kind of going about their business like we're not even there. I think anything's possible.
Also, I think, I'll tell you one thing I hope's not true. I hope seriously that we don't like die, and wherever we die, we're stuck at.
See, yeah,
look, dude.
That is one that I just have a hard time subscribing to, because if you take, say little Janie is killed in a hotel room, and you hear all the time that it's like, oh, this room is haunted because this murder took place here, and you go in, you're trying to find out who the murderer was. To me, that seems like a very sad existence, that your entire life is defined by this one activity. And unfortunately, you just happen to draw the card of getting killed in a hotel room. I don't necessarily subscribe to that. I mean, I think there's energy deposited there. I mean, how else could, say, Al Capone be in 500 locations? Everybody says, here's a haunted thing, and it's haunted by Al Capone. I just don't I think it's a sad existence if we were to be defined and stuck just by that, that one instance that happened. For me, I feel like it's more of an energy deposit from a just extremely bad thing that happened, and it's recorded or ingrained there in that room. I do think that spirits have the ability to come and go and talk to people. They're not confined by the same rules and laws that we have here on the earth. That's all we know, so that's how we look at it and try to interpret it. But I'm with you. I hope that's not how it goes down, because I just think that would be very sad to be defined by that one moment.
You know what, Miranda, I could talk to you for hours, because you're so knowledgeable, and like I said, you've been doing this for a long time. But I tell you what, before we get out of here, we got to let the guests know where they can, find more Ghost Biker. We got to let the guests know where they can go see this footage that we were talking about of a shadow figure taking a picture off the wall.
Yes.
I got to go see that. And then if they want to come book a tour or do an investigation at the Scott County Jail, let them know.
All righty. So first off, thank you for having me on tonight. Thank you all for your kind comments and questions there in the chat room. I appreciate that. If you want to go back and check out all the past 6 seasons of Ghost Biker Explorations, you can do that on the Ghost Biker Explorations Facebook page or Ghost Biker Explorations YouTube channel. Stay tuned for those produced episodes that will be coming out here in late February, early March. You can watch all that. You can also purchase Ghost Biker merchandise and see events and schedules and stuff under ghostbikerexplorations.com. I'm very active on all those platforms, and just starting to really get on to TikTok under Ghost Biker Explorations. You can find out more on the Historic Scott County Jail on the Historic Scott County Jail Facebook page. You can watch all of our videos, see all the teams who have come and investigated there. Check out Historic Scott County Jail YouTube channel, where you can watch all of our past podcasts, the Jailhouse Informant that we do on there. And then you can book a tour and find out all things Historic Scott County Jail under www.historicscottcojail.com.
That is awesome. Miranda, I'm telling you, well, me and Antoinette, we're going to come back. We're going to bring a group of friends.
Nice.
And, I can't wait to get back down there. And, like always, it's always a pleasure talking with you. And thank you for coming on Beyond the Tinfoil Hat.
Thank you for having me, and we can't wait to have you all back.
Awesome. All right, guys. Well, I hope you enjoyed this episode with the Ghost Biker, Miranda Young. Like I said, she's a good friend of mine. If you're ever in Huntsville, Tennessee, East Tennessee area, you definitely want to check that place out. I promise you the Scott County Jail is haunted. I promise. Also, if you have not yet done so, be sure to subscribe to this podcast. Wherever it is you listen to podcasts, right here on YouTube, subscribe. If you're an experiencer, if you have experienced something paranormal, UFO related, ghost, Bigfoot, whatever, reach out to Ryan. Ryan Stacy is our investigator here. He'll listen to you. He'll trust you. And I promise you, he'll get down to the meat and potatoes of what's going on. Next week, be sure to tune in with us. We've got paranormal investigator Christina Westerveld. That's going to be a good conversation. Can't wait to check that out. And like always, paranormal junkies, keep the paranormal normal, and see ya next week. All right, that does it for this episode of Beyond the Tinfoil Hat. A big shout out for tonight's awesome guest, and a bigger shout out for everyone who tuned in. And if you haven't done so yet, be sure to subscribe to us on YouTube or wherever it is you listen to your podcasts. And like always, be sure to stay curious, heed the world, and keep the paranormal normal. I'm your host, Danny Whitson, and this has been Beyond the Tinfoil Hat.